What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel for yet another conversation with Ralph Macchio. Welcome back, Ralph, and congratulations on the book. Waxing On is quite the treat for any fan of yours, but also a fan of the Karate Kid franchise in general. I loved it.
Thank you. Thanks. It's great to be back. It's, just hanging out with one of my friends who's been on board since day one.
Tis an
It's
honor
great.
that you call me a friend. I'll be
I
on
do.
board
I do.
in
I see you. It's like warm and fuzzy. It's like you've been there from the get go. Certainly, well, I mean, the get go of the Cobra Kai launch for me, but I'm sure you've been in the Karate Kid universe before then.
for a very, very long time. One of the things that I always look back on is I went to an event for Hot Tub Time Machine and they did some sort of like 80s party. And I still have the Sweep the Leg t-shirt that I wore at that party. And it's black and like completely faded, but I'm never getting rid of that t-shirt.
That's good. Don't get rid of it because then the show may get canceled. So we don't want that.
Well, I was about to say before, I'll be with you guys until the very end, but I genuinely do believe there is no end. And I feel like some of the stuff that you touch on in the book basically, I don't know, confirms the longevity of the franchise and the fact that these themes are going to continue on and really strike a chord with every generation moving forward.
I think so. Listen, the execution has to be well told, and you need great writers and like we have with John, Josh, and Hayden, and certainly with Robert Mark Kamen, who created the Karate Kid characters in the original script. It has become a little bit the the Karate Kid cinematic universe. There are other ideas, other spin-off ideas, more length to the Cobra Kai series, although we don't have an official season 6 pickup yet. That's the question of I'm getting at every interview. We don't have that yet, but we feel confident, thanks to all you folks that want to watch it, that we'll have more life in what was born in the fall of 1983 when we were making this movie, The Karate Kid. Who knew?
I mean, I was going to save that question for after the book talk, but I guess I'll just throw it out there right now. So you are all just actually sitting there awaiting the Netflix pickup, and like you're not at the point where you're thinking that a season 6 shooting start date is a locked guarantee.
There's no lock guarantees in anything, correct? So in life, but there's a high confidence and discussions, but there's not we don't have that official word. So, but I'm feeling good, and I'm feeling the book is not going to hurt our chances either. I think it's just nice to have me speak of the journey of almost 40 years in the shoes of Daniel LaRusso and what it's been like for me personally and how it represents nostalgia and contemporary relevance at the same time. That's just, very unique to have a story that's ongoing and a character has been so impactful and inspirational, aspirational, wish fulfilling for so many people in so many generations now. So there's my segue.
Maybe not a locked guarantee, but it would absolutely boggle my brain, could not compute any scenario where we don't get the official word in the very near future.
I hope so. I think you're probably right, but we'll see.
Speaking it into existence right now. So for your book, why now? Is there anything in particular that maybe you experienced while filming seasons 4 and 5 of Cobra Kai that made you think now is the right time in Karate Kid fandom to share my story?
Well, certainly there's such a heightened relative. It's so relative right now, and but the pandemic did have a hand in it. I mean, I started writing it maybe a month, 6 weeks after lockdown, when we still every day it was about what's the numbers and what's happening, and this was also when season 3 of Cobra Kai was in the can and YouTube was no longer going to continue, and we had not landed at Netflix yet. But we did have those 10 episodes in our back pocket. So once again, just like the season, I felt confident we would have landed someplace else. Obviously, the Netflix was the global explosion of it all. So as far as having the time to focus on writing the book proposal, which is what came first, laying down the chapter titles, coming up with clever titles that I thought would draw someone into what is the promise of that, and whether it's strawberry shortcake and the cannoli, which is Elisabeth Shue and Daniel LaRusso, in a way, which our director John Avildsen would call us, or The Crane Takes Flight, which is the summer of '84. And then I just started writing little paragraphs of what the promise of those chapters could be. And then we had a great deal of interest from many publishers, and it was just that timing had a lot to do with it. But on top of that, what's unique? What is unique is we have an entity, a motion picture, a movie that's become a big part of pop culture for decades, and now a show on it was YouTube at the time, but a show that was blowing up when showing that these you can come into this universe from different angles and then dive into the gray areas of these characters that were so black and white when they were initiated and originally set up, and then have a younger generation back themselves into this whole franchise. Being able to write to that and pepper that throughout, even though it was really for the most part, it's a chronological walk in my shoes, but I'd be able to jump back and forth, say with a scene from The Karate Kid or something that happened to me while filming, or some relationship, and then how that pays forward and is from a different perspective in the Cobra Kai series, or what I've gained out of the lessons on both in my own life. And now I'm saying this is a book. This is a unique book, unique mainly because only I could tell this story of him having walked in those shoes, and unique in there are not many examples of a movie that has stood the test of time and has become big part of pop culture, and now is a potential number one Netflix show. So all of the above. Long answer, but those are all the components that went into it.
All right, I want to hit some of these components now. Before I get into specifics, is there any particular memory from working on the franchise that changed the more you dug into it while writing the book? Like something about the journey that revealed itself to be more important to you than you had ever realized before when you were writing about it?
Yeah, that's a great question. And yes, that happened probably a few times. It was really interesting going to mainly season 4 is where I wrote the lion's share of the book. I'm in Atlanta and we're shooting. It's winter. It's freezing. We're pretending we're in California. It's just crazy. But somehow we do it with this show. Cobra California is what I call it. And I'm shooting during the day. We're on lockdown for the most part. When we're not in front of the camera, there's barely any restaurants open. You have to just do takeout. So I had no excuse. And I'd sit there and I'd be, diving into areas of certain chapters and, sort of telling the story, say, since I alluded to strawberry shortcake and the cannoli, the Elisabeth Shue journey, what that was like for me. Looking at what it must have been like for her to be written out of the original film in one line of dialogue in the Karate Kid Part 2. I was always so wrapped up at that point in my life. I was heading out to do a movie called Teachers right after Karate Kid. I had Crossroads in development that I was going to shoot. I was then following it with the De Niro play on Broadway. So I was, my mindset was I was wrapped up into my own thing. And as I was writing that chapter, because we got to deal with that narratively in season 3 of Cobra Kai, what happened to Ali with an eye and what was the truth. And it was emotional to shoot that stuff and the three of us together, which made all you fans very, very happy. And she was so great coming back to do that. And so there's an example of me for the first time saying, you know what, Ralph today would have picked up the phone. Ralph today probably would have had maybe an understanding of what she went through, instead of just being so. I would not call myself self-absorbed. I was busy and I was young, so that's one small example. Others are, in talking about my relationship with Pat Morita and the sort of soulful magic of what I call that partnership. That without that partnership, there is no Cobra Kai, because there is no Karate Kid without Mr. Miyagi. Honestly, we could have as many body bags and legs swept as we want, but if you didn't have that heart and soul in that movie doesn't work, right? So diving into some of those areas and having those moments on set with Cobra Kai after writing about Pat and I and John Avildsen and making some of those iconic scenes from the film, and then stepping on the Cobra Kai set and seeing the Tanner Buchanan as Robbie or the Sholo Maduena as Miguel, and looking at those, Miguel is essentially the millennial Daniel LaRusso, kind of, at least in the upfront of Cobra Kai, and then playing those scenes with them from the perspective of the sensei or teacher. Life has moved on. I'm now not the 17-year-old kid or even the make believe 16-year-old kid I was. That was emotional, to write about where it all began and how it's still living and breathing, and without John Avildsen and Pat Morita. So it was emotional.
Kind of going back to the alley stuff and building on that a little, because those are the types of things that you talk about in the book quite extensively, and in particular when it came to Karate Kid 3, the opportunity to use Cobra Kai to strengthen things that maybe should have been stronger or handled differently in the film franchise.
Without a doubt.
Is there anything left in that department that, whether it's in season 6 or something down the line, maybe in a spin-off series, that you think there's great opportunity to go back and strengthen even more?
Yeah, I think. Listen, credit John, Josh, and Hayden. They have take a. Karate Kid 3. Listen, Karate Kid 3 informed a lot of how they write, because Cobra Kai has that bigger than life, sometimes even cartoon element to the superhero element to it. Yet then you have these father son moments and these family moments that have such great heart. It's really interesting, because there are times the show is like three different shows, but it all sustains because the themes are still the same. It's bullying, mentorship, fatherless teens, single parenting, fish out of water, overcoming obstacles. It's all those themes from the Karate Kid are all true to Cobra Kai. So yeah, and looking at what they've done with the chosen Taguchi character and the great Yuji Okamoto, who's like the MVP of season 5, or one of, for sure. These are great actors that just you give them the material to work with, and they knock it out of the park. And Thomas Ian Griffiths, he got to, and I write this in the book, and this was like a last minute, both when we were locking the manuscript, but yet still shooting season 5, I was like, wait, I can't put this out yet. These guys, every day I'm getting something new from them. And I added just a sentence or two, because I couldn't do much more than that, to talk about the longevity, how it continues to live on and grow and add more layers to these characters that might have been a little more two-dimensional, or were definitely more two-dimensional back in those sequels. So yeah, I think there's room, and never cease to be amazed with what our big three come up with, and their whole writing staff, and the nuances that they add and layers, and it's really quite special.
I'll always trust them with that stuff. They've worked
Yeah.
some magic that I never expected to get. I wanted to ask you this one, because I asked it to someone else recently and got the most beautiful answer. And revisiting your journey in the franchise has me thinking about it. So you obviously found great success early on as a young actor in this industry. But is there anything that you've seen any of the young stars of Cobra Kai do that you wish you could kind of, put in your pocket and take back to your younger self and say, like, try this, do this too?
Oh, to myself, right? Yeah, I'd like to be as good as all of them at the martial arts. I would like to just be Tanner and Jacob for one afternoon. And Mary Mauser, how about Mary's the work she's from season 1, never throwing a kick in her life, to how much work she's put in to Samantha's martial arts. So yeah, I was dedicated. I certainly was, and at least I have one crane kick in my back pocket that'll always be heard around the world, right? But yeah, they're and some of the ability to. Pat Morita had this as well, and Jacob is great at this. It's the ability to come in and out of it in a snap of a finger. He'll just be cracking jokes, prankster, and then cry. And then back, and Pat Morita would do that too. He'd do the great Miyagi drunk scene, tears in his eyes of losing his wife and child in the internment camps, and then we'd cut, and he'd have a few fart jokes for me and make me laugh, and it'd take me 10 minutes to get back into character. So I marvel at people that are able to do that. Those just some riffing on some things.
All right, I gotta let you go soon. I could talk to you forever about this franchise. I think you all know that at this point. I'll go for one last little season 6 tease here through something you mentioned in the book. So you had brought up that you always tell John, Josh, and Hayden something that's important for you in terms of where they could take Daniel's arc in any particular season. So I know you probably don't want to reveal anything for what's to come, but is there anything you could at least tease about how that's kind of shifted or evolved with what you suggested to them for season 6 and beyond?
Well, we haven't had that sit down yet that we do every season to talk about where we're going to go. But I will say this much: it's taken longer than I initially expected to get to the Daniel LaRusso say of season 5, where it was early on in the show. Daniel at times was set up just to be the thorn for Johnny, and now that's all kind of evened out through all the characters, you needed the time to be able to do that. You needed it to breathe. But I certainly, one of my favorite things of season 5 is seeing LaRusso get to a place where we hadn't seen him before, where he's losing grip on everything, even though he's the only one who knows the truth. And to see his family and friends and foes all come together and have his back at that point. He very much felt like the aging but young protagonist that when we met him, he was truly, in that moment when everyone comes together to say we have your back and we're going to do this moving forward. I like skinning my knees. I like not shaving for a couple of days. That was kind of fun. I love being in my suits at the dealership, but I like seeing, peeling the layers off and more. LaRusso's intentions are always good for the most part. He might have slipped a few times because it's still a soap opera and we need to show that. But I'd always fight for that. I would say no matter, even if he's being acting like a jerk and a dick or whatever here and there, this is a character that we have to honor is always wanting to do good, which is what he's been from his initial incarnation. And we're there with that. So I didn't answer your question, but there's great stuff to come, folks. I promise you.
You're all too good at teasing things and giving legit nothing away. How many times have we done this and I still haven't learned my lesson?
I know it's good, but it's good. It's great. And there's plenty of that stuff in the book too. I really write to all of that and where it sits in the world for me and where the fans sit, because the truth is, if when you get to the end of this book, that's what really, they've kept this alive. They've never allowed it to go away. And so it's a tribute to them.
As I have to let you go, I'll emphasize that it really is something else. And to everybody out there waxing on, it's essential if you're a fan of Ralph's, and of course you are. If you're a fan of Cobra Kai, Karate Kid, you name it, do get it. I listened to it. I'm so happy that you narrated it also. I feel like that created an extra level of the experience there. So highly recommend it in either form. Congratulations, Ralph.
Thank you. Very great to talk to you.